What's up, good fighters? It's your boy, Dr. Gates, along with Dr. Nash, coming at you live with connection, intention, and purpose as per usual, but never diminished. So let's get it, Dr. Nash. Today, what are we talking about, my man? We're going to get right into it, y'all.
Magnetism. Now, not necessarily. Ooh. There's a lot of layers to magnetism. I always have been fascinated with magnets. I always thought that shit was literal magic. And I've been reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and he mentions magnetism in here, but in a little bit different light. So I wanted to pull a little bit from that. Right, great book, phenomenal book. For anybody, any profession, any background, it's one of those books that you instantly become better just by absorbing the content from it. So
absolutely.
Really, really good stuff.
Real quick, did you get to the part about Palmer yet?
No, dude. I've been waiting for it. It's got to be near the end because I'm like.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 3/4. You're close. I'm almost 100% you're close.
I'm like probably in the chapter, honestly, because it's the brain chapter, or maybe the Sixth Sense chapter.
I need to dig mine up. I have it tabbed. Yeah. But what's he got? What's he got on magnetism, dude? Because I read that book for the first time. Let's see. I read it for my first time through on 75 Hard, actually.
For sure.
And maybe it was actually phase 1, but one thing that I loved about it was, you know, just like you said, it crosses anywhere you're at in life and brings through things you need to work on. So what's kind of the take on magnetism that you want to discuss?
There's a little bit of foundation, which isn't anything new to the people that listen to this podcast or taking this type of content, but a lot of it comes from connection to sources greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And using what Napoleon Hill describes as natural stimulants and transmuting those into what he describes as energy and what would be considered magnetism. So
yeah,
we talk a lot about manifesting certain realities and certain futures for ourselves and certain things that we want to put into our reality, right?
Right.
Having a sort of magnetism of pulling ourselves towards those points. And a lot of that comes from not just having the wish of attaining these, things that are on our list or anything like that, but it's connecting emotion to those. And when we connect emotion to things, it provides a whole nother deeper layer of energy and connection to source. And in this chapter so it's the mystery of sex transmutation. He describes the explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more or less than sex energy. So what he goes on to describe is, and this is like interesting to me. At 28 years old, I've never really thought about it this way. But when it comes to personal magnetism, he describes it as having the ability to turn desire into something tangible, into action. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this chapter, he talks about it more as in the realm of sexual attraction, right? So you being a married man, me being in a relationship for 4 years with Dr. Leilani, as anybody OG listeners know.
Dude, has it already been 4 years? That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wild.
Wow.
But there's a power element behind cultivating that type of relationship and that type of commitment. And the cliche of behind every great man is a great woman. It's more than just power couple stuff, right? There's deeper connection, and it's kind of like, I always think in the terms of like batteries or of like generators or I don't know what the perfect analogy is, but it's a self-fulfilling and self-replenishing energy source.
Right.
Having somebody like that in your corner. But when it comes to personal magnetism, it's using that concept when you're connecting with people. It doesn't have to be people of the opposite sex all the time, but like literally having the desire to create connections with people, or just even like even just diving into being 100% in that moment with somebody,
Hmm.
it provides an element of magnetism that people are attracted to that.
Yeah.
Not just people, but the universe responds to that, right? And it helps bring things into our reality that we might not really have the necessary power to do so.
Yeah.
Do you remember that chapter at all, Gates?
Yeah, a little bit. And actually, while you were talking, I think this is something that, more specifically, Dr. Flynn talks a lot about is when you're with a patient, the number one focus that you have, and this is for all you students out there, a little bit of business tip, I guess you could say, or just practice tip is getting someone to the second date. Your only purpose on your first appointment with a patient is getting someone to the second date, which is obviously a second appointment. And there's got to be some level of attractiveness to what you are bringing to the table and essentially making their life better. You're pulling them in, right? You're pulling them in with some sort of, energy like you were discussing before to ideally make them better, optimize them. And not necessarily because you are this overall powerful being, but because we're all powerful beings that thrive on each other when we're manifesting what we want to, right? So I think that for me, that's always played a role in terms of, like you said, if you want to be a great doc, if you want to be a great human, right? Your connection with somebody, your desire to pull them in, your desire to um, draw people in by your actions, your intentions, your purpose, your overall sustainability in life is going to show. It's going to show examples. And
I
when
always
I,
think
when you were,
about it like, I mean, you hear about opposites attract, right?
hmm, hmm,
Finding different types of opposites in people that
right,
create that like
yeah,
that organic sense of attraction. That's really simple to go to the nuts and bolts of it, just being male and female, opposites attract, okay. Or, and it doesn't just go male or female, but it's almost kind of mindset, right?
hmm,
You know, whether you're into, you know, the same sex doesn't matter. It's all a matter
right,
of finding out what the opposite is that's going to pull you closer by that natural law of magnetism.
right. And one thing that I don't know if you've read this book, but The Way of Superior Man,
Mm-mm.
it's a little out there, I would say, in some capacities, but there's a portion of it that I do like a lot about it is especially with guys. He's discussing guys utilizing their, um, similar to how Napoleon's talking about, not so much sexual attraction, but using an attractive force to fulfill our personal legend
For sure.
instead of just desiring, sex all the time for personal fulfillment in that way, fulfilling your personal legend um, in a way that actually fulfills the earth. And again, not in a sexual way. I don't want that to come off as like go out there and
It
have.
is. It is a part of the reality, though, especially as like growing up in our society, man. Like it's so. I mean, in the culture nowadays, I mean, it's what does Andy talk about? It's like the degradation kind of like
Yeah,
of society to an extent, but
yeah,
in a way, it's kind of like sapping some of that what would have been like chivalrous energy that people would have
hmm,
had
exactly.
prior. That now it's just all about self indulgence and
Well,
there's
not even just the chivalrous energy, the energy to go out there and actually fulfill a meaningful life
right.
and actually do good stuff.
Yeah, and it's really quite easy now to just uh, have quick connections and
Hmm.
lose that magic that can kind of pull you into a higher realm. He talks about in this
Yeah,
book. Now this is again more relevant for males because I think females the mindset's different. So I don't mean to be one sided on this. This is just kind of where the book goes, but I would love for females to kind of drop in their perspective on things too.
yeah,
But he talks about having this is definitely got to have boundaries with this. But when you have somebody that's an employee or and he describes it as somebody who's like working front desk. There's an element to it behind having somebody that has attraction to them, and attraction goes much deeper than skin level, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody that has that attractability, that magnetism, whether that be from personality, whether that be from how they're able to engage in conversation, even simple things like eye contact and just how they carry themselves. Those are intangible things that having that person close in your proximity that you have attraction to, you're able to transmute that into energy if you're smart about it. Like,
right.
How many times growing up in high school or even in college, right, where let's say you had a pretty girl in class or a pretty girl in the gym, right? Were you more likely to go? Were you going to be lazy, or were you going to, if you were going to try and talk to somebody, what's that
Right.
conversation going to look like? Do you feel
Right.
like high energy when you approach that person, or when you're around people like that, or are you low energy?
Yeah.
It's always high energy, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
a natural instinct and a natural energy source that, in a way, can be neglected a lot of time. Or what I was saying before, it's kind of being pumped out.
Right. Right.
So I thought that was
And
dope.
what?
I thought that was really dope to read. Keeping it real, from a book from what 1910. Oh, no way. Really? I would guess 1937. But there
Yeah,
is a
because it was
date.
around when Rockefeller and Carnegie were in, right?
Well, and it does also list the date in here. Oh, that was his birthday. Okay, never mind. Yeah,
Gotcha.
1937.
Well,
I was like 1883. I'm like, what the hell?
I kind of want to play or discuss too on a deeper level of that real quick, Dr. Nash.
Mm-hmm.
And authenticity of magnetism is key too, because we all know an individual who might be very, very attractive in looks, but dang, their personality is just like a freaking stone wall, and they're just
I know
not,
guys too.
huh?
I know plenty of guys that like.
No, yeah, it's in both sexes. I mean, like you
Yeah,
have people that are very attractive looking individuals, but then their personality is just garbage. You know,
yeah,
either
no,
either they're
sure.
bad people or they're just not a fun person to talk to. So, and you have the reverse side too, where you have maybe a really ugly person. No offense to anybody, but their personality is amazing, and they're just a very attractive individual in that capacity. So, being authentic with our magnetism, I think, is a very important point that I want to make real quick.
Yeah,
And recognizing that magnetism, play to the strengths of the best things that you can. So like if you have a front desk, make sure that they don't have some crappy personality out there too, but they're authentic and build their authenticity through and through,
yeah, no, definitely, and making their brightest light shine as good as it can, or as clean as it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a moth to a flame, right?
Yeah.
People are gonna see that as an attractive. I mean, they don't even know why a lot of time, and I find myself for certain people, it's just like it's very gravitating.
Yeah.
I've got mentors that it was just gravitating to be around them, and
Right.
when I'm around those people, I want to be better. I want to achieve more, and I feel like my frequency, my vibration's higher.
How do you think one person can like increase their magnetism? Does he talk about that in the book, or do you have any thoughts on
No, he
that?
talks about it. He gives a list of 10 things, actually, if you want me to
Oh, let's go. Yeah,
touch
dive
on
into that.
right here. So the cool thing is he goes through them, and there's 8 positive ones, 2 negative ones. So he calls them the mind stimuli. One is the desire for sexual expression. Now, to me, that isn't necessarily sexual gratification, but expression. So being validated, even just being recognized by somebody somebody that you have some sort of attraction to. Like we said, it's not a physical thing.
Right.
There's so many layers to it that if you have a 30-second conversation with somebody that's got nothing, it's lights are on or nobody's home. I don't think there's any more unattractive thing to
Right.
in my eyes. But the second one he lists is love.
Wait,
Go
real
ahead.
quick, let's go back.
Yep. Go
I want
ahead.
to go back to that because I really, really like what you just said right there, the validation of sexual expression. Because how many people do we know that have like all this either sexual tension built up, and then they just like act out in weird ways because of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that validation is key, which is why I think we thrive off relationships that are, you know, I think we thrive off relationships like that when we're having that validation, when we're somebody who's just kind of alone all the time. And again, if you're more of a loner, this is no dig at you. I think individuals, we just thrive a lot more when we're sexually validated, like you said.
Yeah. And the brain is constantly processing information and stimulus and just all these frequencies. Okay.
Right.
It's like an antenna, but it's not a one-way antenna. It's a two-way thing. So just by being around other people, especially high frequency, high vibration people, you pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you have
Absolutely.
conversations with them or not, just by proximity alone, you pick up on that.
Right.
I think one of the craziest things, and it's super well known, is just when if there's 5 women in the room and their cycles are on the 1st, 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th. By the end of month 2, they're basically all on the same day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't have a conversation about it, but that's that innate communication that happens, and that happens without any words. That they might even have physical touch with each other, but it's your presence. It's your vibrate, like your aura in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's super real, and that's just one little very real example of how that works. So and lean into that shit. That's something that you can increase that tenfold all the time by being I always want this to be the case, and it might not always be, but my circle, I want to be the dumbest or least bright person. So I get pulled up. I'm like a magnet, man. I'm getting pulled to where the higher state.
Right.
So the second one that he lists is love. I don't really know if we have to dive a ton into that one. That one's up. If you've experienced love before, I don't know if there's much more stimulating feeling on the planet.
Right.
Whether that be with your family, your parents, a sibling, somebody that you are married to, dating.
Well, I don't think you can name anything more magnetizing than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly.
And it allows you to operate freely a lot of the time.
Right.
You could have the worst weather. You could be the worst day in the stock market. It could be whatever. And if you're feeling like profound amount of love, that's there's no greater stimuli than that.
Right. Right.
People have moved mountains for much less.
Yeah, absolutely.
The third one he lists: a burning desire for fame, power, financial gain, money. Okay. The fourth is music. Fifth, friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex. And this is one I want to touch base on. 6, a mastermind alliance. Based upon the harmony of 2 or more people who ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement. So having a tribe, having a mastermind, having whatever you want to call it, a wolf pack, whatever, dude, it doesn't matter what you call it. But understanding the concept that if we want to go fast, we go alone, we go far, we go together.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can align yourself with people that you harmonize with towards similar virtues, values, and you understand that you're not here to waste somebody else's time, and you're not here for just some superficial reason for only singular gain. That's another one of those situations where it's God, I need to look up a proper analogy, man, because I can see it in my mind, but I can't really put it into words. It's I almost think of like a. You ever seen a electro? Was it like not like a big magnet, but like a super magnet or whatever? Where they basically like send the electron around and around and around.
Yeah.
Basically using like the magnetism to like speed up the electron particle.
Right.
It's basically that feedback loop that it just keeps on increasing speed by having those opposing forces in a way. And
Right.
I might be off on how that even works, but that's
It's
what
like
I.
a bullet train. It's like a
Yeah,
bullet train.
kind of. I don't really know how those work, but maybe.
They like turn on the magnet. They like turn on the lower magnets. There's no generator on the actual train
Okay.
that's power. It's more stagnant, but the track it's on turns on when those magnets come across so that it propels it forward.
Okay. So exactly. That's exactly like what I'm seeing in my mind when it comes to
Right.
having people around you that are in a figurative sense an opposite.
Right.
That they propel, and it's not just a literary sense, but they're very physical and real tangible things that show that.
Right. And they make you more powerful.
Yes. Yes.
A bullet train stays on the track and it's more powerful because of what's going on underneath. So yeah, I like that a lot.
Cool. So he goes on. Number 7 is mutual suffering, such as that experienced by people who are persecuted. Pretty relevant.
Right.
People who've been stepped on, kicked, you are kindred spirits with somebody else who's gone through something similar. And not in a sense that misery loves company, but that's an empowering feeling that you're not alone. And like I said before, if you want to go far, you go together.
Yeah.
When you have somebody to go to keep on pursuing and forging a path through the mud, coming up and out of the mud, that's a motivating shit. That's what, for my background, I played junior college football, and that's what a lot of it was. There's nobody here with any really guarantees. This is almost kind of like the last chance. Netflix, The Last Chance You is what
Last Chance You.
And not by accident. I'm not a huge fan of the show, to be quite honest, but it is relevant to an extent that, like, when you burn the ships, you take out the floor, and there's no option other. You could fall flat on your face, but there's unlimited potential. It's pretty motivating.
Yeah.
Pretty stimulating, especially for the spirit. Not just the mind, not just the physical body, but your spirit's stimulated by that.
Right.
Because I don't think there's anything more real or realistic than having no floor. Because that's living in the present, right?
When you suffer with somebody or you go through a similar experience with somebody, there's such a connection in it. And you as an individual can rebound so much off it. It makes me think honestly about when Andy talks about the story of how, he got stabbed and he had all this, his face was jacked up, and everywhere he'd go or in his store, they'd be like, "What happened to your face?"
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, and he was mostly ashamed of it until he bumped into his car, ran into that chick in the store who was burned from head to toe.
Yeah.
And she goes, her face was marred too. And she goes, "What the hell happened to your face?" And they bonded on that moment alone, and it let him see a future and become more successful with who he was. His magnetism increased tenfold.
Yeah.
Maybe even more from that conversation and that interaction alone, because they had been through the muck. They didn't have any floor. There wasn't anything for them to fall back on.
Yeah.
They couldn't grow a new face or anything like that. Like, yeah, they could try to cover it up with maybe some plastic surgery, but at the end of the day, they will always and forever have that experience with one another that I know he for a fact thinks on. I'm sure she does as well. And doesn't that make us as individuals stronger? Going through school together.
Mm-hmm.
Make us stronger personally. Me getting kicked out of school when I was an undergrad, when I hear other people's stories about that and their successes, that continues to propel me even more. When it's something
crazy,
that
bro. For as long as I've known you, I don't think you've ever told me that story.
I thought I told a couple, like really?
How you got kicked out? No, I don't think so.
Dang.
You told me about how Jared from Subway used to like, and like that dude, that freak.
Yeah, I did ride my bike past his old apartment at one point.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty sad if I shared that story with you. Not
maybe you did, bro. Maybe I played a little too much football and I forgot it.
No, I mean, but it is something that like every now and then I do personally in my own heart. I think back and I'm like, I don't want people to look down on me for lesser. So sometimes I don't necessarily share it outright, but it is something that makes me who I am today. And I even told Chatel this the other day is sometimes it's very difficult for me to kind of slow down and be in the present because of that.
Mm,
Because I so badly do not want to go back to that point where I had to tell my dad that I got kicked out of school.
hmm
Like that is something that freaking sucked and it made my heart drop like so freaking much. But at the end of the day, I would not be half the Cairo, half the doc that I would be today because of that. So even that suffering, and maybe we'll exclusively do a episode on that kind of story because it is a pretty good one in terms of how I got back in, because I got kicked out of IU and then I got back into IU and I had to work my butt off and stuff. So that's a pretty good story overall. So I might save that one.
Yeah, dude, save it for sure. I just wanted to make that little comment because
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that's like heard you make the comment
Yeah.
before.
Why do I think? Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah. Fun fact: I actually got into Palmer just not making my way through school.
I mean, you would be the first. All right, so 3 left. Number 8 is auto-suggestion, which to me is a fancy way, or maybe a more lay person way, or our just lexicon's different,
Yeah.
but that's innate connection.
Yeah.
Auto-suggestion.
I mean, at its most simplest form, for sure.
Yeah. But having opportunities to allow that communication to be, clear.
Do you
Meditate.
have a favorite form of autosuggestion, Dr.
Like
Nash?
right now, dude, one of my favorite things is literally that 10 minutes of visualization. Literally so good.
Dude, yeah.
Literally so good, dude. Um, for anybody that doesn't know, we're going through phase 1, and part of phase 1 is 10 minutes of visualization every day. And it's holding something in your mind, like holding a picture or holding something that you truly desire in your mind
Mm-hmm.
and visualizing it, and then letting innate or auto suggestion flesh it out even more as you
Yeah.
visualize. And yeah, for me recently, that's been like every single day I get done with that and I'm like, I have this feeling like in my, literally burning desire to go out and make the most of the day.
Right.
But one of the
What?
good tools for that is a vision board. But like Dr. Mo talked about last episode, is also storyboarding. So creating a
Yeah.
story around your vision board.
Yeah.
It's not just a story, but seeing the movie in your head, visualizing the movie. That's what I've really been doing a lot recently with my movie, is not just go like, so mine is one of the things I'm thinking about or visualizing is buying my parents' house back that they had to sell, but they didn't want to.
That's a good one.
But it's more than just me visualizing the house. And it's more, it started off as me I'm just going to try and remember every inch of the house and walk through it and remember as much as I can. And
Do
it's,
you know the address of that house?
it is,
I'm sure you could find it, but
I looked it up. I think it's 2401 Copi Road.
it'd be cool if you could go visit it and like do a visualization session there. Just like ask the owners.
I pulled it up on Google Maps and I screenshot it and I put that on my vision board.
Dude, that's so sick.
But in my storyboard or my movie, my mental movie, there's a whole element to where I'm watching myself pull up to their house, their current house, and before that, I'm organizing everybody at the house that I'm buying, and it's going to be a surprise. So I'm pulling up to the house. I'm like, hey, we're going to take a trip, but I blindfold them, take them into my car, which in my mind is a Tesla truck, Cybertruck.
Ooh, let's go.
And then it goes from there. I'm not gonna just turn this episode into Nash's
Nash's storyboarding.
Yeah, my storyboarding, but that's kind of gives you a picture of like what that's like for me with the auto suggestion side. So that's what I really like.
I think that's so powerful, like you said. What I've actually been doing is, because I've been trying to envision like what I want the practice to feel like, and so I actually went on, and anybody can do this. Whatever you want to visualize, auto suggest, whatever you want to do, go onto YouTube and see if you can find like a video, like a sounds of that, right? So I want my practice to be almost be so busy that there's people just hanging out, having conversation, kind of like what Dr. Mo shared. in terms of people just come even if they don't have an appointment, right? But then also that the phones are like just going off the hook. So I just like, there's like a call center YouTube thing that goes on for hours. And I just will sit there for 10 minutes just thinking about like what my future practice will look like. The phones are ringing off the hook because people are so sick and they need help to optimize their health. And at the same time, I have individuals playing with their kids in the front area and, you know, just going back and forth the room and hugging patients. And I just visualize that so much. And what's funny is, I don't know if this is one of those things where you just notice it more or if it's actually taking place and manifesting and how it is now. But I feel like my phone's ringing every like a lot more than it was. So
yeah,
take that as you will. And then the second form of auto suggestion, I don't know if you've done this, Nash, but 49 breaths, created by Sid Williams. I love it. And if you haven't done 49 breaths, highly suggest. There is a YouTube video out there from Dr. Brett Jones. He has it up there, but it's a form of rebirth, form of auto suggestion. And whenever I want to become more powerful, take on the day and just, you know, go balls to the wall, that's what I do. Anytime. Takes like 5 minutes maybe.
Nice.
So that's my two big practices.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. I mean, what I think about for mine a little bit too is just my martial arts background, just doing more of my Selim Tao flow, which is from Wing Chun. So that's been really good for me.
That's huge.
Forming better connection, mind and body.
100%.
Oh, and for the breath too. Explain. All right, so not explain. It's the breath work side of it, right? Is it like a 7-second inhale, 5-second hold? No,
not for this one. So you actually are doing. There's essentially portions of breath work and then portions of affirmations. Okay. So you will do like a form of affirmations, seven breaths. So inhale, exhale, very, very powerful breathing. 14 breaths, or excuse me, what's it called? The word I just said. Affirmations in between. 14 breaths, affirmations, 14 breaths, affirmations, then one more round of 14 breaths if my math's right. And realistically, what it cultivates inside you is confidence. You're affirming what you want from that day, who you are within the inside, and essentially breathing, in my mind, rebirthing with each breath. And what Dr. Brett Jones talks about is we don't really know what 49 breaths is from, but it's potentially from in the Tibetan Book of Death. 49 breaths is or 40. The number 49 represents reincarnation or rebirth. So, you know, for me, and sometimes I'll mix in prayer with that, with what I'm doing too. Is, you know, I do a little bit of prayer, but then mostly affirmations too. So that's usually how that works.
I have to look that up, that YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish the last two for the 10 mind stimuli. Number 9 is fear. And number 10 is narcotics and alcohol. Which of these 10 are the stimuli that are chronically used by the government? 9 and 10. Which ones are usually the ones that are, I mean, not necessarily in our scenarios, but in, I guess, more corporate America or more typical job settings, those are the ones that they use to stimulate people. The fear of not having the fear of living paycheck to paycheck is very real for, I think, like, I don't know the real statistic, but I guess I would assume
it's a big number.
3/4 of Americans at least probably live paycheck to paycheck.
I think it's higher than that, bro.
And I'm being conservative, I feel like, with that.
Yeah.
That's so well, go ahead.
His point is this is almost like like a wrong type of magnetism, or magnetism takes place in like it happens, but it's because our bodies are naturally inclined to that.
So, I mean, these are stimuli that they elevate our vibration, and it's what the mind responds to.
Gotcha.
Though, I mean, it's super, super crude and like very trivial now, but I almost think of Monsters Inc. Right? Like, ever seen the first one? Yeah. They use fuel, or screams for fuel, and then they're like, oh, like joy, laughter, and love, that's like exponentially better fuel.
Right.
Kind of same concept almost. So
Yeah.
just
Like it's a
preying
fuel,
on
but
people's
maybe
despair, preying on people's
like a
lack of,
perverse source.
yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't prepared to handle the current, not just program, but the system, the way it's set up, right?
Right.
Financially, household wise, I mean, there's a lot to it, but like, I don't think people are truly prepared for that, at least in the current quote unquote education system. And I think that's intentional, because it creates this element of fear that, well, you know, if I've got kids and I don't go to this job, I'm afraid that they're not going to eat.
Yeah.
And I hate this job, and
Yeah.
I'm scared that if I don't do it, or if I do this stuff wrong, I won't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
And then you lean into the other Simeon said he lists as narcotics and alcohol. Sometimes he says they can be, you know, in moderation, or even like lower amounts, they can be an assistant. I'm not necessarily in that camp as much, but that's just what he talks about. He lists people that have been quote unquote successful through the use of alcohol, like Edgar Allan Poe or a few other writers. But in my opinion, was it because of the alcohol, or was it in spite of the alcohol? You know, maybe for some people it just numbs them enough to align themselves with the greatness that they could potentially have at all times if they weren't
lack of limitations,
process so much, or having limitations, like you said. Yeah.
Right.
So those are the 10. I mean, you know, listen to those again, write them down, whatever. But those are 10 mental stimuli that you can use to
and get the book.
Elevate your frequency. Page 208.
Dude, yeah, I think, you know, when you're talking about this type of stuff, it just makes me think about more about the capabilities that we have, like we talked about. And when you're going through things like this book shares, like these individuals that we meet, I'll actually share a story one time. One time my first job ever, I was working at this ice cream shop, and we were talking about superpowers. I don't know if I shared this story before too. And I asked my buddy, I was like, what if you had any superpower, what would you want? And he was like, I would want to have the superpower to like influence people, like to, you know, not to like in an evil way, but like to influence people to do things. Right. And I was like, that's the dumbest superpower. But now I was looking back, I'm like, man, if you could influence people, have the magnetism in a moral compass kind of way, that's amazing.
Sure.
I would say that today, you know?
That's your superpower of choice?
For this episode, yes.
Fair. And not for this episode, but like my answer has always been, I like the control of gravity.
That'd be a big one.
And
I mean, I'd love to fly in general. I would love to fly.
Of like magnetism though too.
Oh yeah.
Because like that is an element of it, right? So
yeah, you're floating.
Or creating a atmosphere or a situation where that's intensified or concentrated. Maybe I make myself super strong like Goku by experiencing multiplication of gravity over time. Wolf's Law.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I've never ever seen an episode of Dragon Ball Z, a full one. The disappointment in your heart right there.
I know I'm not alone. That's
no, you're not. In fact, Chantel would probably get what you're saying more than me, which is kind of sad. And no, I think because her older brother loved Dragon Ball Z.
You married a good one.
Thanks. I think so too.
Yeah. But
that magnetism,
bro. Magneto. That's about all I got, Gates. You got anything else to wrap up with today?
No, I think that was solid, guys. Go out there, get your reps in, source that magnetism. And at the same time, you know, go back and listen through this, get the book, all that kind of stuff. Because the more influential you are to people, the more magnetism you have with people, the better off, not only more fulfilled your life is going to be, but also at the same time, the more you're going to fulfill other people's lives. And that remember, we talk about obligations for our community. That should be an obligation that we should keep at the forefront of our mind space. Every present moment. How are you going to coach today? How are you going to coach? That's all I got.
Love it, bro. You know how to find us. The other thing is you got to pay the fee.
Pay the fee.
Let us know. Write us a review. And if you have some comments on the show, man, reach out to us on Instagram or personally. Yep. Love to hear back from anybody that's has some takeaways or has some drop-ins. You can find us at the_good_fight_ers at DC Gatesmayer_DC.
Yep.
And at DC_Nash_T.
Help us to get to 1,200 downloads for the first year. Pay the fee.